the next up, we have on the plenary, we have Dr. Arun Kumar Singh, Department of Law, Northeastern Hill University, Nehu, Shillong, Meghalaya, India. He is an BSc, LLB, LLM, and has been awarded PhD in Law in 2009 from Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Awadh University, Faizabad. He has more than 16 years of teaching experience as a lecturer in law. He was a lecturer in law in APNPG College, Basti, UP, affiliated from Deen Dayal Upadhyay University, Gorakhpur from 2002 to 2001. He is a lecturer in law in the Law Center to Faculty of Law, University of Delhi from 2003 to 2005. Assistant Professor of Department of Law at Northeastern Hill University, Shillong from 2nd January till date. His area of interests are criminal law, business law, human rights, property law, and private international. He has been a mentor to PhD students. He is the member and the head in charge of the department, member of board undergraduate students, Department of Law, Nehu, and he is also the member of advisory committee, member of the editorial board, International Journal of Jurisprudence and Philosophy of Law. He has published books on human rights and society, 2011, University Publishing House Private Limited, Jaipur. Dr. Singh has also published Corporate Law and Governance in 2014 from Regal Publications, New Delhi. Also, Human Rights in India by IO Publication, New Delhi. He has many research materials, that is case material on law of evidence from Law Center 2 and case material on property law. There are plenty of chapters given by him that has been published in various books. We are very honored to have you on board, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, good morning to one and all present in this August gathering. And for that, really, I am thankful to the organizers as they have given this opportunity to be the part of this international seminar, and that's why it has become a very auspicious day for me. I think I am audible as well as visual. I am audible properly?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So, the topic that has been assigned to discuss is justice for disabled, national and international perspective. So, this is very relevant because, as we know, the disability is nowadays a burning issue, and we know who is disabled. Actually, the concept of disabled is a dynamic concept. It is not fixed. So, disabled are the person who are physically challenged, incapacitated, mentally challenged, or sometimes they are also called handicapped. It reflects that they are the person who are impaired by one or other means. When we go through the UN Declaration of 1975, we will get a special meaning has been given by that particular declaration, which says that a disabled person is the person who is unable to ensure by himself or herself wholly or partly the necessities of a normal individual and social life. So, we got that the impressive definition was given, but that was not sufficient. That's why WHO has given a different opinion regarding this. And WHO also rejected the concept that disabled are the synonyms of enabled. So when we go and see, as per the WHO data, about 650 million people in the world are disabled, and 80% of whom are staying in developing countries. As per data of 2011 census, the world's population about 7.8 billion who are disabled by one or other means. Sorry, total population of 7.8 billion, out of that 1 billion are disabled by one or other means. In that data you will get that 1 in every 4 women are found disabled, 46% of children are found disabled, and 41 out of 10 children are found disabled. 46, that is people of age more than 60 years of age are found disabled. So 1 out of 10 children are disabled, 1 out of 5 women are disabled, not 4, it is 5, and more than 46% of the people whose age is above than 60 years are disabled by one or other means. And these disabled peoples are deprived from their basic rights, and they directly, indirectly suffer discrimination and lower standard of living. That's why a focus was given regarding the protection and promotion of human rights. As we see, although it was there already in the provision of UDHR 1948, Article 1, 2, and 3 of this declaration provides right to equality and non-discrimination of each and every people. There was no discrimination that it is available only to the able people and it will not be available to disabled people. Similarly, Article 3 of the ICCPR and ICSCR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, impose obligation on the state parties to ensure the equal rights of men and women in their own countries. So this was there, and it was convention, international convention, though India is quite signatory of that particular convention, but not much emphasis was given. Then special focus regarding disability was given actually in 1970, when it was on international level, when it was considered as human rights issue. The UN General Assembly in 1976 declared that 1981 would be the International Year of Disabled Person. Not only this, the General Assembly in same meeting declared that from 1983 to 1991 it would be the even decade of the disabled person. Apart from this, the major step that was taken to protect the lives of disabled fellows, disabled person, was in 2006, when the General Assembly on its 13th December 2006 meeting adopted the Convention on the rights of the disabled fellows, disabled persons, and it was adopted consensusly. And this convention came into force on 3rd May 2008 after the ratification of 20 countries. And it's very significant and welcome step that by 2020 there are about 182 states who became the party of this convention. Not only convention, on the same day, that was on 3rd May 2008, an optional protocol was also enforced. The objective of optional protocol was that if the state particular is not fulfilling the norms mentioned in UNCRPD, that is universal, that is this Convention on Right of Person with Disabilities, that is in short we call it UNCRPD 2006. So whatever provisions are mentioned, whatever norms are mentioned, if those norms are not being implemented in a particular country, the individual can also make complaint to the Committee on the Rights of Person with Disabled, which has been prescribed under the convention. It means this is very welcome step because even individual can also move to international body regarding the enforcement of their rights. Individual disabled then can also. And not only this, after this convention, that is United Nations Convention on Rights of the Person with Disability 2006, the disabled people have been considered as subject with right. Earlier they were considered as object of charity or pity of charity. So then we can say that this was a very, very welcome step. The convention has about 50 articles. Among those 50 articles, right to equality, right to life, right to privacy, right to access to justice, freedom from torture, etc., are there. We cannot discuss in detail because of the paucity of time. As we do that, this is the welcome step on international level, and India also ratified. And India also ratified this convention. Yes, India also ratified this convention on 1st October 2007. India ratified this convention on 1st October 2007. So, as you know, through UNCRPD, the interaction between person with impairment and attitudinal and environmental barriers have been taken into consideration. And these barriers which hinder the full and effective participation in the society on the equal basis with others were tried to be removed. So this basic barrier which is there regarding the disabled fellow are the not only physical barrier but it is attitudinal barrier also. So this convention very comprehensively said that the disability is nothing but it is interaction between impairment on one hand and attitudinal or physical barrier on the other hand. And they have said that suppose if any student is there, any student means, suppose the student means a student who is facing locomotor disability, and he has to take class on third or fourth floor of any educational institution, and if institution did not provide proper ramp, proper facilities, even wheelchair or lift, then how can that particular student move on attend the class? So these are the physical barriers. After that, another type of barrier is there that is known as attitudinal barrier. Attitudinal barrier is actually more dangerous than the physical barrier. Because suppose office staff or other students or teachers, they say things that they think that this disabled fellow is good for nothing. They are useless fellow. If the mindset is like this, then the disabled person will always be considered as disabled. So this thing, which is creating a lot of problem, as I told you, this is the biggest challenge. Attitudinal barrier is the biggest challenge before the society. The physical barrier can be removed, but it is not very easy to remove the attitudinal barrier. As I told you, that this the concept of disability is a dynamic concept. It is not fixed. For example, suppose a person is suffering from paralysis today, and tomorrow he can be fit. So today he was disabled, and tomorrow he may not be disabled. That's why the concept of this disability is a dynamic, it is a movable concept. Why if I support this? Because when you go and discuss the history of this disability, you will get that there was one model in existence that was considered the charity model. Charity model means whenever people among us see that disabled fellow, physical disabled, mental disabled, that is mental retarded, not present day, this is called intellectual disability. Then we think that how it happened. This is he is the man of pity, and he should be considered an object of pity. So some mercy should be shown. Like this was considered a charity model. So this charity model later on changed and converted into medical model of disability. Medical model means whenever disabled person is found, immediately it is there in the mind of the society, he is medically unfit. How he is medically unfit? Because it is said by the doctors. Is he disabled? Then locomotor disability is there. Then what is the percentage? Is it covered under the purview of 40% or not? If it is not 40%, then he will not be able to avail the benefits as given for the disabled fellows. So these are some of the examples regarding the mental disabilities. Then later on, the concept changed, and nowadays the social disabilities model came into existence, where it is being advocated that social inclusion, even if a person is disabled, then he should not be kept in isolation. No special school should be set for them. Rather, they should be allowed to study in the general school where other students are studying. Why? Because this will develop in the mind of the disabled people that how should I behave with the person who are able person, and vice versa also. Vice versa in the sense, this fully disabled fellow will also develop a relationship with disabled fellows, and today or tomorrow when they go in the society, an idea will develop. How should I behave? Their mindset will be changed. That's why social model has been taken into consideration. This is called social inclusion model also. And presently this social model has been modified, and it is nowadays converted into human rights model. This is called right-based approach. So from 2006, when UNCRPD came into existence, that social model has been reformed, and it is human rights model. It is right-based model. So, and they have been provided many rights in the convention also. Before this convention, if you ask now, we have to come to the provisions regarding, because there is mostly outside time, so we have to do this first. So nowadays, if you come to see Indian scenario, actually before this convention, there was a law in India that was known as PWD Act 1995, where only mental model was emphasized, and only 7 categories of disabilities were there. 7 categories, only those fellows who were being covered under those 7 categories were benefited by the act, and they were only entitled to get the benefits of the government policies and etc. etc. But after UNCRPD 2006, this PWD Act has been replaced because India also became influenced with this UNCRPD, and they replaced PWD Act 1995 with the CRPD, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, that is called RPWD Act 2016. And the beauty of this act is not only 7 models, rather nowadays 21 models, 21 types of disabilities have been taken into consideration. Means there are 21 types of disabilities as per WD Act 2000, Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. That includes acid attack. Any patient of acid attack or any victim of acid attack is there, then he will also be covered under the purview of disabilities and will be entitled to get the benefit under this particular act. Parkinson disease and thalassemia, these diseases, no one had paid attention regarding these diseases, but in this act, these diseases are also included as in the category of disability. So, as per old act in 2011, if you see the data of 2011, situation was like that. 2.21% of the population here were disabled in India. And you please pay attention on that. This percentage of disability was there when PWD Act was in existence, and only 7 categories of disabilities were there. Nowadays, 21 categories of disabilities there. It means this data can increase at least 3 times. It means 3 times of the people are disabilities, suffering from one another disabilities. So now you can say about 2.68 crore people are disability as per section as per this 2016 Act. Unfortunately, out of these number of disabled fellows, 41% of the people are remaining unmarried. No one is coming forward to marry with these fellows. So now, if you go through this particular act, you will get there are 102 sections, and this act came into force on 1930 to 2017. In this act, certain rules are also there, rules to govern the provisions, and that particular act rule is also enforced in India from 15 to 2017. Apart from these, certain guidelines are issued by the government. Those guidelines are still applicable from 5th June 2018. What is the basic idea behind the enforcement of this act? The act has certain principles. Principle in the sense, these are the some of the principles, those must be followed. What are those? Number one, respect for dignity, inherent autonomy, and freedom of choice. This is the first principle. Then, second basic principle of this act is there should be non-discrimination. No discrimination should be done between able and disabled person, and no discrimination between the disabled man and disabled woman. And not only this, full and effective participation and inclusion of these people in the society must be ensured. Another basic idea before this act is accept of the person with disability as part of human dignity, human diversity, and humanity. So this thing, these are the things which are being considered as an important factor, important subject under this 2016 Act. And besides this, some more rights are mentioned there, like right of equality, equality between men and women, respect for children of disabilities. But the more focus that has been given regarding the definition of the disability. Two definitions are mentioned there. One is under section 2S and other is under section 2R. 2S, it says, just I am going to read it out. Person with disability means a person with long-term physical, mental, intellectual or sensory impairment, which in interaction with barriers hinders his full and effective participation in society equally with others. If any impaired person is facing any hindrance to regarding full enjoyment of the life as par with the other member of the society, then this will be called disability. So long-term word has been used in the definition. Why not fixed term? Because as I told you, this is a dynamic concept, and it has been there, and it has been left on the states that a particular disease what they want to fix. And another the definition that is there, that is called benchmark disabilities. So there are two definitions of disabilities in the Act, and those who are being covered under the benchmark of disabilities, only they are going to be benefited. So benchmark disability as per section 2R of the Act says that any person not less than 40% of disability. In 21 disabilities mentioned, there will be covered under the purview of benchmark disabilities. Recently, if you have seen, one judgment was delivered by Supreme Court of India regarding an aspirant who was appearing in the UPSC exam. That the name of case was Vikas Kumar versus UPSC. In this case, there was one student who was appearing in UPSC exam, and he was suffering from dysgraphia, and he asked for scribe, but it was refused by UPSC. Then he said, no, in our rule there is no such provision. We can provide the scribe only for the 21 those who are covered under the person with benchmark disabilities. Your disability is only 6%, so you cannot get the benefit of the benchmark disability, and I cannot allow you. So ultimately, when matter is before the Supreme Court has said that this is a welfare legislation. We are not going to provide any extra benefit to him. Rather, we are going to deprive him to appear in the prestigious examination, that is UPSC examination. So we are not going to give any job to him. We are not going to give a special seat to him. Rather, we are going to facilitate him So if 6% disability is there, even if he should be permitted to get the stripe, so he was allowed to get. So you can say this is the developing movement from the stage of Supreme Court. You can say this is the welcome step of Supreme Court, because a person, if he is suffering from 39% of the disability, he will not get the benefit, and a person who is getting 49% of disability will be benefited. So that's why it was said that he will also be benefited. Apart from these provisions, there are also provisions in the Act that a child should not be separated from her mother without her consent, and vice versa also there. Is a person who attained the age of majority without his consent, he should also not be separated from his disabled mother. So this is the provision there under the PWD, this not PW, this RPWD Act 2016. And one more right is also prescribed, though it was there, but through judicial pronouncement it has been said that right of reproduction is also available to a mentally disabled fellow. Mentally disabled. This was a case which was decided in 2009 by the Supreme Court of India in Suchitra Srivastava versus Chandigarh administration. In this case, one lady was there, she was mentally impaired, and she was in their home and was raped by 7 to 8 fellows. And later on she became pregnant. When this fact came into the knowledge of the administrator, they informed the Chandigarh administration. Chandigarh administration took the decision to terminate the pregnancy of that woman who was mentally ill. But she was not ready. She said, no, I want to have baby and I will deliver the child. Matter is before the Haryana High Court. High Court said no, there should be the termination of pregnancy, because she is not the lady who is in position to take care of the children or child. Then it was appealed before the Supreme Court. Supreme Court consulted with the medical board, and ultimately it was found that medical board suggested, okay, no problem, she should be allowed. The Supreme Court allowed that, okay, this mentally ill women should be allowed to deliver the child, and she delivered the child, and the child is now of 11 years old, and she is also taking care of her mother. So right of reproduction through this judgment, you can say this is also a welcome step from the judiciary, that judiciary has given this type of judgment that mentally ill women can also have right of reproduction. Apart from this, some more rights we are going to discuss in brief, because time is already going to be over. There is Article 32, Clause 1, which says that 5% reservation in educational institutions should be given to the disabled fellows. But there is restriction that this will be given in government institution and government institution. There is no provision regarding the private institutions. And one more welcome step is that provision is there not only for 6 to 14 years of age, 6 to 14 year age of children for free and compulsory education. Rather, it is given 6 to 18 years. If any child who is between 6 to 18 years, then he will be allowed to get free and compulsory education and the Right to Education Act. Besides, other things, in section 34, clause 1, it has been said that 4% reservation in government service, that is job reservation, has been made there in this act. Earlier it was 3%, now it has been increased 1% from 3% to 4%. So now it is 4%. even if each and everything is available there. But the thing which is important to be discussed is unless and until the barriers are going to be removed, these rights which are mentioned in the Act will be useless. So first of all, structural hindrance, that is called physical barrier, should be removed. There must be disabled friendly structures, and government has also said that if any institution, many institution, not only the educational institution, any institution who has not developed the physically or mentally disabled friendly institution, that the license of those will be cancelled from the authority. Apart from this, one more thing is there in the Act, that no one can insult or intimidate the disabled fellows. If anyone calls them by name of mental, dumb, deaf, psycho, etc., then he will be punished under the Act. And simultaneously, the provision has also been made that if any person is going to misuse this benefit or this facility, then he will misuse means he is going to take false certificate, forged certificate, for disability certificate, then he will be punished for 2 years imprisonment and fine up to 1 lakh. So these are some of the provisions there. But after discussing these things, we will get that nowadays, especially in India, under PWD Act, 7% were there, 7 disabilities were there. But nowadays, 21 are there. So earlier 2% were considered as disabled, then 7 disabilities were there. Now 21 is there. So undoubtedly that I told you, it will be number of disabled will be increased. If number of disabled are going to be increased, then burden on the state will also be increased. Burden on the state, actually burden, we cannot say that this is burden. Rather, this liability of state is going to be increased. So whatever fund was providing for disabled, considering PWD Act 2011, that should be enhanced, because funding will be a very, very big issue after 2016 Act. But they have been provided right, they are having various schemes, so it is duty of the state to increase the fund. And the guidelines should be issued regarding the certificate, although guideline is there, but the guideline that has been issued for getting the disability certificate has become more tough. It was a little bit easier in PWD Act 1995, but in this present act it became difficult because you have to get this from expert. There are 21 experts must be available to provide the certificate. In last, because in last we can say, unless and until physical barrier plus attitudinal barrier is going to be removed, all the laws, all the acts will be useless, futile. So, thank you, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us on such a sensitive topic and opening our minds to the study of such a sensitive topic about the disability and what are the litigations present. Thank you so much, sir, for being on the panel, sir.
Thank you.